Hey guys, welcome back to Zane Customs. In this week's episode, I'm going to be creating Steve from Minecraft. And I also just want to do a real quick shout out to It's Me 11, who asked me 2 months ago if I can try and sculpt up Steve. So it took me a while to get to it, but I eventually got around to it. And I just want to say again, thanks for everybody that does comment in my videos and suggest things for me to sculpt. So for this sculpture, as per usual, I started off in Forger, which is a sculpting app for the iPad Pro, and my basic layout is I just wanted Steve kind of just standing there in a pretty simple pose, having his left arm out holding a wooden pickaxe and his right hand above a crafting table. Because the more I started to think about sculpting up Steve, I thought it would be a good opportunity to also sculpt in the Minecraft armors, which is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. So what I thought I would do is sculpt up Steve just in his basic form, in all the Minecraft official art you see of him, just his t-shirt and jeans with a crafting table and a wooden pickaxe, which is like pretty much the most basic items and everything that you can get in Minecraft. It's what you start out with. And then I thought it'd be cool to eventually upgrade him, give him leather armor, and maybe now a stone sword, and then eventually upgrade that and give him iron armor and go all the way up through until he eventually has netherite armor. So that's kind of my basic idea. So I wanted a pose that would fit with everything, with all the different armors and different weapons. So it's a pretty standard pose, but I really was trying to push myself as far as sculpting ability when it came to this particular sculpture, because like I've said in my past videos, I've been really trying to get better at that, and also been trying to get better at posing in general. But I thought it would just be a lot easier for myself in the future if I had a pretty simple standard pose that would carry over throughout any future modifications I might do with this. And one thing that I was really trying to push myself on was, obviously, the majority of the things that's going to be happening with this character is his clothing. There's not a lot of other details I can add, so I went ahead and used some of the cloth dynamics that you guys have seen in some past videos, but I tried not to rely on it too heavy, so I turned his shirt and his pants into a cloth dynamic and had it kind of animate itself to show me where the wrinkles would be, where they would start, and then from there I went ahead and edited it out and tried to make it look a lot better, and I should say render it out and try to get to a more finished state from there. But initially I did convert them to cloth dynamics and kind of had them animate themselves a little bit. And then here I'm added in the crafting table, just trying to add in the textures, or the wooden texture, and make the top look like it's a big piece of leather hanging over. And by the end of this, you'll see that I ended up taking the crafting table out because I kind of felt like it took away from Steve himself and made the whole statue a little too bulky. But it's something that, like, if you guys like the idea of having the crafting table in here, I could definitely go back and fix it up and make it look a lot better and re-add it in there. But I just wasn't so sure about it. But we'll see towards the end how it ends up looking. Yeah, so as of right now, it looks okay. I definitely didn't finish it out. If you look at the actual Minecraft crafting table, he's got saws and I think some hammers and stuff hanging off the sides, like different tools that you can't actually get in game. They're just textured on the side of the crafting table. So that's something that if I do decide that I want the crafting table to be part of this sculpture, then I would have to go in and add those. But I just wasn't sure about it, so I thought it'd just be best to make the video and leave it in the comments and see what you guys think, if you think it looks better with the crafting table or just Steve himself. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a video out last week because I got sick and didn't really have time to work on it. And then I didn't put out a video on yesterday, which would have been July 5th, which is normally I try and put them out every Monday, but it was kind of a holiday weekend thing, so I just decided to wait one more day to put this video out. But having said that, it gave me a lot of extra time to work on the sculpture. Even though I was sick for that week, I still had some time here and there, and then this last week I was able to really work on it and really render it out a lot better than most of the sculptures I've done lately. Actually, I feel like this is one of the best ones I've done in a while. I'm really happy with it. A lot of times, for you guys who have watched my videos for a long time, you'll know this. I'll spend a long time sculpting something out, and then once it comes to like the hands or something, I just have to really quick pose them and don't really do much sculpting on them, just because I run out of time and I got to get the video out, which is something I don't like doing. And I actually really liked being able to spend almost 2 weeks on this sculpture, just being able to have a lot more time on it. And I think it looks a lot better. I really tried to render out everything as well as I could. His hands, his arms, his fingernails, his clothing, the seams in there, his head, everything. I try to spend a lot more time on. And honestly, I think the worst part about the sculpture entirely is the coloring, which I am totally fine with, because that doesn't really matter. You know, if I'm going to sell this sculpture, I'm going to print it out and I'm going to have to paint it physically anyway. So really, I only color them just for photos to put on my Etsy, or like the photos you guys will see at the end of the video. But as far as that, the coloring doesn't really matter. It is something that I want to get better with in the future, but really what I'm trying to focus on now is just my sculpting ability. So I'm really happy with that, because sometimes I feel like I lean a little too heavy on the colors to fix things that I couldn't get sculpting wise, and this time I feel like I did a lot better job sculpting it over coloring it. And I think that becomes really apparent right here, where I'm working on his left hand that's holding his wooden axe, because I spent so long on this hand and I went back and forth just because, like I mentioned in the past, faces and hands are the hardest part for me, and I know for a lot of artists. And something about his fingers, the way they wrapped around, it just didn't look right, and the knuckles kept being off. And it doesn't seem like much time, because this video has been sped up by an insane amount, but I spent a long time trying to make his fingers look right on this hand. On the other one, they're just kind of hanging there, so it was a lot easier, but having his fingers wrap around this axe really made it difficult, and I spent a long time trying to make him look good. And like I mentioned, unfortunately I didn't have a video last week, but that did give me the ability to spend a lot more time on this sculpture, whereas if I did get this video out last week, I probably would have got the fingers placed roughly right and just had to run it, because I didn't have time to fully render it out. But I'm really happy being able to fully render it out and have the time to do that, and it's something that I really want to do in the future, have all my sculptures look this good. Just because I don't really like putting out a video of a piece of work that I'm not entirely happy with, but it's kind of what I've been doing, just because I told myself to get a video out every week. So that's part of the reason I'm considering going to every other week or something like that. And you can see already, at least in my opinion, this sculpture's looking a lot better than some of the other ones I've done, especially just looking at his hands and all the wrinkles and different things I've been able to add in there. Just something I normally don't have time for, and looks a lot better in my opinion. And I'm actually really happy with the way the axe turned out. That was one of the things, when I do these sculptures, I always try and leave a little hint of Minecraft in my version, you know. Aside from the fact that this is obviously Steve, anybody that sees this is going to think, oh, that's Steve from Minecraft, or at least if they know who Steve is. But I still want some homages, so like on a lot of them I'll try and leave their heads a little boxy or something like that. And with this guy, his head is a little boxy, but I didn't go as far with it, because it started to look weird with how well his hands and his arms and his shirt and stuff was rendered out. It looked a little too cartoony and didn't really fit. But one thing I did do to hint towards the kind of blocky Minecraft aesthetic was his pickaxe. The actual, not the handle, but the actual pick part is still wooden blocks like it is in game, and it looks a little funky. You know, if you didn't know this was Minecraft, then it would probably look funky, but knowing that it's Minecraft, I like the way that turned out. And one thing I also do this gets a little overshadowed once I go ahead and do the full texture on the shirt and pants, but I was trying to make Steve look pretty rough and tumble. My idea was like maybe he just washed ashore on a beach, and then all of a sudden he was in this Minecraft world. That was my idea. That's why he's shoeless, and I tried to make his clothes look a little tattered. Again, you'll see once I texture him that the fabric texture kind of hides a lot of the roughness I was going for. So that's something I might need to fix in the future if I want to keep going with this. But I wanted, again, the sculpture to look really rough because I want to eventually upgrade him and add leather armor and then iron armor and then all the way up to netherite. And so I thought the idea of having him start off looking literally like he just washed ashore on a beach and like a castaway, doesn't know what's going on and just trying to survive in this rough environment. I thought that would be really cool so you can see the progression throughout the sculptures. And that's also something I wanted to carry over through his anatomy. I wanted to kind of bulk him out with every progressive statue I do, going from this one to leather armor and then to iron armor. I wanted him to look bulkier, like he's going through this journey and he's getting bigger and stronger. But that's something you're not really actually going to be able to see through the armor, so I just decided to go ahead and just try and find a good balance in between skinny and, you know, overly muscly. And so that's kind of where I landed on that. That's why if any of you guys were wondering why he's as defined as he is, just because I wanted to kind of go somewhere in between. And it was a good kind of practice sculpting like this, because usually most of the things I sculpt are just superheroes or something like that, and they're overly muscly and just massive biceps and things like that, which is fun. I like doing it, but it was a good practice trying to do something a little bit less. And something that I also want to do in the future is going even thinner, and, you know, something like when I did my Enderman, which was, you know, a long time ago, months and months ago, but I went really, really thin arms with it, and I was kind of pushing the lines of realism, but at the same time as the Enderman, so it didn't really matter. But that's something I want to do, or I want to try my hand at in a more realistic sense, is doing a skinnier character just more realistically, just because I tend not to do that. I tend to do overly muscly characters. Another thing you guys will see me do throughout this whole sculpture is constantly playing with the anatomy, as far as like proportions, I should say. Messing around with the proportions just because things don't look right. And one thing you can actually do in ZBrush, which I just barely learned, and I can't believe I just learned it now because it's something that pretty much everybody does, but you can change your perspective, like your view. If you look over on the right hand side of my screen here on ZBrush, there's a bunch of different buttons you can press, and one of them is perspective, and you can press that and it gives you two different perspectives on your model. And the reason I started getting into this is because I sculpted Wolverine a couple months back, and I actually printed him out, and he looked way different in real life than he did in the computer. His head was way too small, and all his proportions were off. And so I started looking into it and found out that as you sculpt, you kind of got to go through these two different perspectives. So I learned how to do that, which is just toggling on and off this button. But that led to a whole other can of worms when I was doing this sculpture, just because I couldn't decide on how long I wanted his legs or his arms, just because it would look good in one view, and then I would switch to the other perspective and it would look a little different. And it's probably something, honestly, you guys probably don't notice because this is a sped up time lapse and it just zooms through it, but it's something I wanted to mention because I spent a lot of time on it with the sculptures, going back and forth between these perspectives and really just trying to nail his proportions. But if any of you did notice me going back and forth and stretching out his legs and then shrinking them and just doing that a bunch, that's basically why. I was just trying to make him look as proportionate as possible. And there's parts of the videos you can see he'll switch forward and backwards between different perspectives. And again, it's a time lapse, so you probably won't notice it, but that's what's going on there. And now here's the base I wanted to go with. Like I mentioned, I had the idea of him kind of being maybe in a shipwreck or something and washing ashore, and now he's in this weird Minecraft world. So that's why you'll see I kind of created a sandy base with a little bit of water in the corner. And what I'm doing here is just trying to do something called UV unwrapping, which is basically you draw in where the seams would be on the clothing, and then the computer unwraps that. So it takes a 3D model like these pants and unwraps them so it could be laid flat, much like real fabric. You actually just draw in where you want the seams to be, and then it'll unwrap it based on that. And I'll do the same thing with the shirt, and then from there it makes it so I could add a texture across the pants and the shirt, and it's consistent across. It doesn't have any weird stretching or anything. Kind of a confusing process, but it's very similar to real life, where you got to actually have real seams in your fabric and stuff, because you can't have just a flat piece of fabric wrap around your body and look like a normal shirt. You got to cut it up and sew it together at the seams and all these different things. So you're kind of imitating that when you do UV unwrapping. And again, all of this UV unwrapping that I'm doing here is just so I can get a nice even texture going across his entire shirt and pants. When it comes to texturing something like his clothes or his face or something like that, I don't worry about that, because you don't have an even texture going across your face. You got random wrinkles here and there, so I'll just go and do that randomly. But if you try and texture a shirt randomly like that, a lot of times it just doesn't look very good, in my opinion at least. You guys are also probably noticing that his face and his hair look pretty much done. Unfortunately, in the recording process, I don't know what happened, but some of my files got corrupted. So yeah, unfortunately I don't have the full video of me sculpting his face and all the struggles I went through there as far as coloring and stuff, but it's pretty much what you guys saw. There's just a little bit of extra stuff that I missed, and you can see there it just flashed for a second, but I started to color in a little bit of a facial hair on his chin, and that is because on the actual Steve model, a lot of people say it's his mouth, some people think it's a little bit of a chin beard, but he's got a darker brown texture towards the bottom of his face. And I don't know what the official Minecraft stance is on it, but it does kind of look like a chin beard. But as you can see here, it also kind of looks like a mouth, and that's just what I ended up going with, because I think the beard looked a little off. But yeah, there's the finished sculpt. I'm, again, super happy with it. Yeah, love the way it turned out. Would love to hear what you guys think about it, and if there's anything you guys want to see me do in the future. Again, I didn't end up keeping the crafting table, but let me know if you guys liked that idea, and that's something I could always go in and add in the future for, if I'm going to be selling this on Etsy and that's something you guys want in the actual sculpture, then just let me know and I'll add that in. But yeah, just wanted to say thank you so much to anybody that was willing to like, comment, subscribe to my channel, watch the video all the way through. It means a lot, and I super appreciate it. And thanks again to It's Me 11 for the comment and suggesting doing Steve in the first place. If you guys comment anything on my channel as far as like asking me to sculpt a specific thing, I write all those things down. I have a master list of everything that's been asked me to sculpt and everybody that's asked me to do it. So definitely, if you want me to sculpt something in the future, then hit me up in the comments, and there's a good chance I'll end up doing it eventually. And if you're interested in this sculpture or anything else you've seen me sculpt on this channel, you can check it out at my Etsy account, and I'll have links down below. And thanks again for watching. I'll see you next week.